The New York Times has a pretty disgusting fluff piece on the Saudi king. They talk about his trip to Indonesia recently, and listen to how he travels. They explain here, as part of a month-long tour in Asia to promote economic ties, we're going to come back to that in a second, King Salman of Saudi Arabia arrived in Indonesia on Wednesday to great fanfare, accompanied by about 1,500 people. Jesus. Among them, 25 high-ranking princes, 10 ministers, and more than 100 bodyguards. They arrived in 6 Boeing passenger jets and 1 Lockheed C-130 Hercules, a military transport aircraft, which of course we gave them, carrying 506 tons of cargo, 2 Mercedes-Benz S600 limousines, and 2 electric elevators for the king's personal use. There were 572 workers just to deal with the delegation's luggage. The king used a golden-hued escalator to descend from a jet painted with the words, "God bless you." The royal family's fortunes are tied to vast reserves of petroleum and other assets estimated to total more than $1.4 trillion. The Saudi royal family is worth $1.4 trillion. $1.4 trillion. Oh my God. We did the story recently about how, I think it was Bill Gates, they said, by whatever year in the future, he might be the world's first trillionaire. We kind of already have the world's first trillionaire. I mean, it's the family technically, so it's a little different, but I mean, my guess is if the king said, mine, all that is mine, there's no process to stop him unless you fucking kill him. So 1.4 trillion this family's worth. That's so gross, man. And the way he travels is so gross. So they lay this out in the New York Times as if it's like look at this, isn't this grand? What? That's not grand. It's a grotesque symbol of corrupt politics. It's a grotesque symbol of income inequality in an authoritarian absolute monarchy, which also, by the way, is a Sharia state. It's a theocracy. So the article focuses on, well, he's doing this to create business ties with Indonesia. And they bring up this $25 billion deal that Indonesia was seeking to do with Saudi Arabia. Well, it turns out the king said, no, we're not doing a $25 billion deal. Okay, so why are you there? He says, well, look, we'll maybe do $1 billion deal, which is chump change to this guy. I mean, that's nothing. So we'll do $1 billion deal. But what's the trip really about? Well, then we go to the Atlantic, and they explain here. Since 1980, Saudi Arabia has devoted millions of dollars to exporting its strict brand of Islam, Salafism, to historically tolerant and diverse Indonesia. It has built more than 150 mosques, a huge free university in Jakarta, and several Arabic language institutes, supplied more than 100 boarding schools with books and teachers, brought in preachers and teachers, and dispersed thousands of scholarships for graduate study in Saudi Arabia. So what's really going on here is, and this is the first trip of its kind since like 1970, I think. They actually have the exact number here. But the exact year, I should say. He's trying to export Salafism even more. Wahhabism. So this is the most ultra-conservative, fundamentalist, far-right interpretation of Islam on the planet. This is the ideology of Al-Qaeda. This is the ideology of ISIS. Did you know with the refugee crisis recently in Europe that the Saudi government said, no, look, we're not going to take any of the refugees. Thanks for asking, though, but we're not going to take them. But we will volunteer to build mosques for them in Europe. Excuse you? So what they're doing is they're trying to fund Salafism, Wahhabism, all around the world. They're trying to make this toxic mindset the standard mindset, the go-to mindset. They're trying to turn tolerant Muslims, and by the way, Indonesia is the most populous Muslim nation in the country, and they've been at the forefront of fighting against the ideology of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. They've waged gigantic campaigns to counteract that narrative as being the true Islam. And they say, no, true Islam is diverse and open-minded. But now the Saudi king's going there and he's trying to say, hey, look, here's some money. Well, maybe we'll do more business deals if you let us build more Salafi mosques, if you let us expand further and get a foothold in there. So, and this is the deal that the U.S. cut. The U.S. made a deal with the devil. We said we got an oil deal with you, we got business ties with you, so we look the other way when you treat your women like second-class citizens and cover them up and say they can't drive and behead people in the public square and say all atheists are terrorists. We'll look the other way because you're our business partner. But now they're going even further, and they're saying, well, we're going to export our ideology everywhere. And the U.S. just sits by. What happened, President Trump, Mr. I'm tough on radical Islam? You're emboldening the biggest offender here. And furthermore, in this New York Times article, not a single mention. All the opulent, bullshit that this guy travels in with his fucking giant jet and all the gigantic crew and the gold-plated this and that and the Hummers and all that, they don't even mention that right now, Saudi Arabia is doing a slaughter fest in Yemen, killing thousands of people, innocent civilians left and right, bombing mosques and hospitals and schools and open-air markets and schools for the blind, and using cluster bombs, which are illegal under international law provided to them by the United States. And by the way, millions of people are on the verge of famine there. So as they're committing war crime after war crime, atrocity after atrocity, the New York Times is writing fluff pieces about, look how opulent he is traveling, and look at, he's not doing anything nefarious at all by going to Indonesia and trying to spread his toxic brand of Islam. No, 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 no. What a sick, pathetic situation we're in. This is a terror state. This is a terror state. We need to unravel our ties with them. I'm not saying you start a war or anything like that, but you gotta be... It's carrot and stick, man. I say the same thing with Israel. Carrot and stick. Make them do a peace deal. Make them do a peace deal with the Palestinians. Make them allow a Palestinian state. Do it at the UN. Apply economic pressure. I would do the same kind of shit to Saudi Arabia to stop them from exporting Wahhabism, to make them treat their women right and minorities right. But no, instead we have in the U.S. fluff pieces written about this terror state and this terror family.